Before I get started, I want to recognize Mark Lusko, who's here as one of my guests. He's a special agent with DEA. He's been a huge mentor in my career and done a lot for us as an agency. He's ending the downside of his career and will be retiring soon, and we'll miss him greatly. So thank you, Agent Lusko. So we'll get started. Mary introduced me. These are the three divisions that I'm over today. I'm first going to be discussing with you fentanyl, and show you kind of what we're seeing in Baton Rouge and why it's so deadly, because it's not just because of the strength of fentanyl that caused the overdose and some other things that go into that. Mary went over my background, so I'll skip that portion. So just a brief overview. If you look at the screen, all this is showing is how the fentanyl is getting to the distribution points before it comes to us. It's the precursor chemicals are coming from China, which most people know. Some also come from India. They'll then travel to Mexico and some to Canada, and where they have clandestine labs there that are then process those precursor materials into the actual fentanyl that comes across our border. That's not saying that all of it comes that way. That's just saying the majority of it does. They still have some that's shipped in directly to source cities and whatnot. From that point, once it's processed, it comes through our southern border or through the northern border to source supply cities like Houston, Dallas, LA, which then makes its way here. Which brings me to, so this is bricks or kilos of fentanyl that we seized here in Baton Rouge. Each one of those brick shapes is very conservative estimate, enough to kill 10,000 people. And that's extremely conservative. That's people with opiate tolerance is already built in. So each one of those is 10,000 deaths possible. So what happens is those bricks will then be broken down by our street level guys into smaller amounts. It'll be amount this size or larger. A lot of times it'll be different colors, because the fentanyl, once it comes out of those labs, is generally just white, and they can put whatever cutting agent with it to make whatever color they want. So if they want it to look like heroin, they'll cut it with something that is a heroin color, which is a darker tint. I've seen all kinds of things used, from the standard cutting agents to praline candies, them putting them in a blender with the fentanyl to make it have the right color that they're looking for the street. So those are some of the cutting agents that we see, and granted, these are just sold at CVS's, supplement shops, anywhere you can think of. Mannitol is what we see the most, but again, they can use anything. All the cutting agent is doing is making their fentanyl, the product they have, a larger amount so they can make more money off of it, which will get us into where the real problem is. So this is just a picture of a scale. These are in all the houses we see. Obviously, they're not keeping them very clean. They're not cleaning them after the use for this. A lot of our street level, mid-level guys that are dealing drugs are poly drug dealers. So what that means is they don't just sell fentanyl. They're going to sell fentanyl, cocaine, meth, whatever else. Well, obviously, if they cut their cocaine the same way they cut their fentanyl, when they're weighing it on these scales like this, there's cross-contamination that happens. Because a lot of the overdose you see is people that think they're doing cocaine, and there's either a little bit of fentanyl in there, or they sold them the wrong package, and that's where the overdoses really come from. A lot of them, at least. So once they weigh the cutting agent as well as the fentanyl, they're going to mix it up. Obviously, so this is a case we worked, and this is just in a dirty closet where they're mixing it up and putting the cutting agent and the fentanyl together to get ready for the blending process. So this is so they can either sell it once they cut it and mix it as fentanyl powder, which users will use to ingest, where they snort it or they inject it, or they also make pressed pills. These pressed pills can look like any possible pill you can think of with the right pill dye, which we'll get into here in a second. So they can make it look like a Loratab, they can make it look like an Adderall, they can make it look like whatever, but it's actually fentanyl. This can just be purchased off the Amazon. It's just a binding agent that gets mixed with the fentanyl and cutting to make the pills have the right consistency and stick together once the process is done. So Standard blenders, what they use to mix it all up. These are what we see the most, these little bullet blenders, but any blender they'll use. Again, you can see the tint of this. They don't get cleaned, so if they cut their cocaine and then they cut their fentanyl after that, there's going to be residue left over that could also cause overdoses. These are what electric pill presses look like. Generally, they come in from China. These are not illegal just to have. You can get one shipped to your house. Nothing says you can't. It's when they're used in the process of making illicit drugs is where they become illegal. So the pill dye is what I discussed earlier. This is what actually makes the imprint on the pill when they use the pill press. So they're going to have whatever they're trying to make it look like is going to have that is going to have a dye like that. That basically takes the fentanyl, the binding agent, and the cut and presses it all together in that electric pill press machine, and whatever imprint they have and whatever color they mix the stuff with is going to come out. So like a hydrocodone pill like you see there, it's going to come out looking like a hydrocodone pill that you would get at a pharmacy, and you're never going to know the difference. Agent Lusko and I just spoke at a fraternity at LSU earlier this week, and I was shocked to know that I'd say 90% of the college-age men in that fraternity hadn't heard of pressed pills before, didn't know it was a thing, that pressed fentanyl pills. And that's something that us as law enforcement really have to do a better job of getting the information out there to the youth, because the fact that they didn't know that's a problem. So that's just an electric pill press in a closet where they were pressing it. So I don't even remember if it's the top or the bottom, but one of these bags is pressed fentanyl pills in the shape of Lortabs, and one is actual Lortabs that we seized on a case. Whether the distributor knew or not, I don't know, but one of these bags is fentanyl and one is actual prescription drugs from a pharmacy. And I mean, I've been doing this 18 years and I cannot eyeball it anymore. Where we used to be able to look at drugs and you could kind of tell what they were, that's not really a thing anymore that you can do. So when they come out of the pill press, this is what they're going to look like, whatever color, whatever shape. So I use this picture here because that is the imprint for a 30 milligram oxycodone or morphine pill, but they just used these colors instead of the actual colors that the pill are normally in to sell them. So, and this is where the kind of the danger comes. You have a very, very deadly drug, and then you have, these are some of the latest individuals that we've arrested in cases like this, where they likely didn't make it out of chemistry in high school. And I can tell you for a fact that they were not classically or properly trained how to mix probably one of the most deadly drug that's ever been on the planet. And these individuals are mixing it. They don't know how to do it. They're not taking the proper steps. So one batch of their mix may be really weak, and the next batch may be triple strength, and that's where you get the overdoses that come in. Some more of our chemists. So shift gears a little bit. Why did we as an agency shift our priorities in 2019? Sheriff Gautreaux realized that, as you see here, 19, these are the overdose deaths in East Baton Rouge Parish, how they were beginning to rise, and then they spiked after that. So we knew, we'd heard that fentanyl was going to be an issue. We knew that the larger cities that kind of have these issues before us were having them. So we decided, because of the fentanyl epidemic, these three things also needed to change to make us more effective as an agency, as a division. Prosecutions, 20 years ago, if you did a traffic stop and a guy had hard drugs and a gun, likely was getting convicted and going away and not a problem on the streets anymore. That day's not really the same anymore. You need actual investigations to put people in prison that need to go there. So also the seizures, a lot of law enforcement, this isn't just the sheriff's office here, this is around the country, kind of moved away from working actual investigations and chased stats, how many felony arrests they could make instead of quality arrests. That's kind of a thing that had changed in the country, and we saw the result of it, which is basically just police not doing actual longer-term investigations and taking out the mid-level and upper-level distributors. So we knew that needed to change. And also what we were going to do to proactively target these individuals while we're not having vehicle pursuits every day, shootings every day, lawsuits, because with those things comes from, and I get it, rightfully so, administration saying, whoa, what's going on? Why are we getting in pursuits every single day, having shootings? So I'll get into what we did to do those, to change that. So the first things that I was promoted in 2019 by Sheriff Gautreaux and put over the narcotics division with a general marching orders of fix it. Like, we need to get away from the stats. We need to start working cases like we should and so forth. So this is what we did. We updated our training, our equipment, got the right personnel in there, and then they gave us time to work quality prosecutable cases, because these cases don't happen in 2 days, 3 days. Sometimes it takes weeks and months to do correctly. So the mandatory training that we implemented at the Sheriff's Office in our narcotics division was tactical, use of force, and legal training. Tactical training, our guys do 2 hours every other week as all 3 units together at our range, shooting, clearing buildings, medical scenarios, and so forth. We get our legal updates from Scott Kurgi, who's a practicing attorney here in Baton Rouge that worked at DEA with us as well. Our combatives and defensive tactics, we train as a unit now 2 hours once a month. And just to put that in perspective, most law enforcement, I think the state mandates you get 8 hours a year total for defensive tactics. So obviously, we know that you need more than that to be proficient in that. When we've also seen, since we implemented that, our use of force has gone way down, just being properly trained. Physical surveillance, we outsource and bring a guy in that is retired out of California Highway Patrol that ran a mob investigation unit, and he does a week-long course for all of our guys when they come into the division, and then every 2 years we do a recert where they're actually learning how to do proper physical surveillance, and then our medical training like we did. This is some of the tactical training that we do at our range: vehicle takedowns, clearing structures and whatnot. Defensive tactics, it's SSGT, which is a law enforcement defensive tactics that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based. And it also helps on that note, guys having the stress inoculation, being in real combative situations where they're really having to wrestle people in training, because I think a lot of y'all would realize you can go through all the motions that you want, and then you get out on the street and it's a whole different thing if you're not used to that stress and that use of force. The physical surveillance, these are actually 2 of us. That's now that's the captain of narcotics now on that physical surveillance. So it's just thinking outside the box to be able to see the things that you need to see, where most law enforcement, think that you can just sit in a car and sit on the street and watch the illegal activities happening. When you're working real drug trafficking organizations or guys have been doing this their whole lives, that's not going to cut it. So you have to think out the box and appear to be homeless or deliver pizzas or whatever else. The updated equipment, we really updated everything from our, everything you see in here was all new stuff that we purchased and equipped the guys with. Now, when this started, there was only 8 of us in the division. We have 35 now, spread over 3 divisions. So this has been a working process from 19 to now. From ballistic vests to helmets to all the other raid gear. And I'll say, for example, the ballistic vests with rifle-rated plates in them, I guess it's probably been about 9 months, a year ago. We were doing a search warrant in a house. We had taken our main target away from the house, taken him into custody. The house we thought would be empty. It was not. When one of the guys breached the bedroom door, suspect fired 5 shots and hit one of our guys in the vest, and the vest saved his life. So just those little things where if we wouldn't have changed all these things, it would have been an issue. Electronic equipment, that's from pole cameras to bucket trucks to trackers and whatnot. I'm not going to get in a lot of detail on this because it's kind of tradecraft stuff. And covert equipment to record all of our purchases and whatnot, because this day and age, if you don't have it on video, it didn't happen. So when you go to court, everything has to be on video, and that's something that we had to update and get with the times with. Medical gear, each one of our guys now carries on the left their own medical pouch with Narcan, Israeli bandages, which is a pressure bandage, quick clot and chest seals and a tourniquet. And then on the right, all the raid vehicles that we use now have the big medical bags with where everything's labeled, and anything you can possibly think of, it's got somewhat of a solution for you. More importantly, how much did all this training and equipment and everything else cost y'all, the taxpayer? And that's zero. People don't. So we're able, the narcotics money that we seize, 60% of that, once it goes to the court process, can be used for narcotics enforcement. So every bit of training, equipment, vehicles, everything comes out of narcotics seizure money instead of the taxpayer. Which is also a wonderful thing, because once you put more, it's kind of like a business almost. Once you put more money back into the equipment, you're able to seize better, have better results, and keep funding your efforts. Big change we made with all that being said is stopping the stat chasing and started focusing on mid to upper level distributors. As I said, the stats or the traffic stops are hard to prosecute, and you're only getting 1-2 guys at a time where you can take out the network. If not, if you work these cases in the manner which we do, that are actual investigations, the stats take care of themselves at the end of the year. And we did all these things to try to, we're not going to stop the flow of drugs into our parish. I think everybody realizes that. But we can stem the flow. And with fentanyl, that's so big, because how I went over the cutting process with you before, if the more we take off the street in those bulk loads, those bulk quantities, that causes the mid-levels and the street-level guys to put more of the cutting agent in their product instead of more fentanyl, because they're still trying to make their profit margins, right? So when we take those larger loads off, it dilutes the product that's actually on the streets in Baton Rouge, which in turn makes less overdoses happen. Because I can tell you, there's not less fentanyl coming in to East Baton Rouge Parish right now than there was 2 years ago, but we've seen a decline in the overdoses. And that comes from this, as well as given the appropriate mental health people and social outreach people to have time to go reach to those people and maybe get some of them off the street, some of them off of fentanyl. Where if the product is still strong on the street, that's probably not going to happen. Risk mitigation, as I talked about, the lawsuits and the shootings and all that, we figured out working more complex investigations and running search warrants. We then could decide where we're going to take the suspect into custody, when we're going to take him into custody. So you're not risking the constant traffic stops where you don't know who you're stopping, you don't know what crimes they have in their past, and so forth. And also we're able to, if we're running multiple search warrants, look at what's the suspect's criminal history. Do they have flight from officers? Have they been involved in vehicle pursuits before? So we can change our tactics to go with the individual's criminal history instead of just a cookie cutter thing for everything and go hit the house and wish for the best. That kind of doesn't work. So the more complex, longer term investigations, for example, this one took about 4 months, but it's multiple kilos of fentanyl, lots of guns, bulletproof vests, large amount of currency, where yes, it took 4 months, but the results from those longer term investigations is making a way larger impact in the streets of Baton Rouge than it would be if the guys were just out there jumping on street corners every day trying to do that old school thing. Another thing that we spend a good bit of time on, since we don't so much go after the lower level people, the lower level distributors that much, in one case we do, whenever they're tied to some sort of fentanyl overdose, whether it's a death or they bring the person back to life and we're able to identify that distributor, even though they're a low level guy, we will work a longer term investigation on those individuals because obviously they were responsible for a death. These types of cases require different methods. I'll just briefly go over some of them with you. The suspects are identified in those cases generally from one of these family members. Believe it or not, if someone has an addict in their family and has been an addict for a while, the family a lot of time has an idea of who their drug dealer is, because they've either tried to run him off before, they've had to pay a debt before, whatever else. So a lot of times the family's able to tell us who they think the suspected drug dealer is that killed their family member. Their friends, same thing. They know most times who the dealer is. Other users, if they're on scene when the overdose happens, a lot of times they'll give us the information we're looking for because it's kind of a shot back to reality that their friend just died, even though they're an addict as well. Cell phone data. This comes when we get a warrant and are able to download the individual's phone that died. It'll tell us a lot of times who the distributor is or give us an idea of what we can work with. We have some great DA investigators that work for Hiller's office that monitor these phones and jail calls and provide us a ton of information when it comes to this is a distributor you may want to look at for these overdoses or whatnot. And I also say his office does an exceptional job, and we're lucky to have him. I don't think they get enough credit. One of the things that we really like to do with overdose suspects is introduce an undercover agent to them. So a lot of times we'll use informants to buy the drugs from distributors, which causes some issues in court because we don't want to have your CI have to testify, where we'll get one of our actual agents acting in undercover capacity, whether it be acting like an addict or another distributor, to go then and purchase from the suspect. That way when it comes time to go to court, the agent has no problem getting on the stand and saying, yes, I purchased 4 times from this individual fentanyl. The way we'll introduce those agents, generally it's informants that are introducing them. That's the easiest way, whether through a phone call or an in-person type deal. Another one is a cold call. We'll sometimes have distributors get put in jail and they'll be instructing their girlfriends, wives, baby mamas how to continue selling for them on the street. We then have an undercover agent contact that female because she doesn't know who the client base is and start doing purchases that way. So it's all about thinking outside the box on a lot of these scenarios. And a UC bump, which is an undercover bump, which is basically if we knew Hiller Moore was our guy that we're going after, I'm going to find out everywhere he goes and I'm going to just start bumping into him. He's going to see our face until we can make some sort of connection there and try to purchase from him, whether it's at a gas station, a bar, wherever else there. Okay, so with all those, the training, the technology, everything in mind, just to give you an idea how successful it was, this is the stats from our units from 2019 to now. And granted, when we started this, there was only 8 guys. Now we have 35, so it's been a gradual process building these 3 units up. Over 1,000 arrests, 1,000 firearms. 23 of those were fully auto machine guns. 139 of them were stolen. Over 100 pounds of heroin, and this is actually kind of old because we're over 100 pounds of fentanyl as well. 90-something pounds of cocaine, 70 pounds of meth, and we just broke the 10 million mark with currency seizures since 2019. And just to give you an idea, that's a 1,400% increase overall on average for all the stat categories, arrests, everything, since we revamped in 2019. Like I said, 200 pounds of fentanyl and heroin, that's well over enough to kill 500,000 people, and those are very conservative numbers that I'm giving you. If you looked at DEA's, what they put on their website for uncut dope, it'd be 15 times as high as that. So again, back to the first chart that we went over. In 2019, we revamped. Obviously, the overdoses kept going up, but we've seen a decrease the last couple years, and hopefully this year, obviously we're not that far into it yet, but it'll be the same. It seems to be trending that way. And going back to what I said before, you can't police yourself out of this problem. I think everybody realizes that. So the social work people, medical people, they have to do their part too, but what we're doing is hopefully stemming the flow to give them time to do that. And along the way, probably getting some distributors to not reoffend by putting them in prison or giving them the shock to get out of that world.